Hi! In this video, we're going to see how do we take data from Office 365 and blend it into our application. We're also going to build things like using nested galleries and nested forms. So stay tuned to see more about how to build an application from scratch using PowerApps. Welcome back. So we're going to build an application today right from scratch to kind of build on the application we used last time. In our last video, we built a time card management application. Now we're going to build the time card itself. So picture a tablet. And on this tablet on the left side, we'll have a list of the projects that we managed in our last video. On the right side, we'll have our time card up top, and on the bottom, we'll see a list of all the other time cards that we've already submitted. We'll do this through nested galleries, where the entry and selection from one gallery feeds the next, which feeds the next, and so on as it goes on. We also want to build things like Office 365 integration to tell what user is signed in, and then from that sign in, go ahead and limit the list that they can see of time cards. So they should only be able to see their own time card. So let's begin. So what I'm looking at now is my environment right now, and I'm going to create an application from scratch this time. I'm going to do a tablet layout this time. So before, when we create an application from a data set, it immediately does a phone application only. But if we do a blank application, it gives us a lot more flexibility than before. Now that we have that done, we want to go ahead and create a new data set. So there's a few ways we can get there, but the easiest, one of the most common ways is going to View and Data Source, and we can create our data sources here. So let's go ahead and create our data set now to the two tables we're going to use. We'll use the same database connection we used last time to Azure. And those two tables are going to be the time card table and the project table. Okay. And hit close. Now, connect, excuse me. So you'll see a list of all the views and database tables we have access to there. We'll have one connection later, but we'll go ahead and kind of tuck this away for the time being. In our application, we want to go ahead and add a new item. The first item we're going to add is going to be a gallery. So that'll be our gallery on the left, and that gallery is going to have a sample data set at first, but we're going to bind it to our project table next. All we care about are the project names, so I'll just say titles, and that limits us just to the titles. Let me go ahead and skinny that down just a little bit here. And once I do that, there's a few things we can do. So I want to make this feel more like an application. And there's some nice ways in PowerApps to kind of give it that feel. Well, first of all, one way we can do that is we can go ahead and say, as you hover over each item, I want to go ahead and push out that item. In other words, when I held the Alt key and I kind of hover over it, you can kind of see it kind of jiggle a little bit to let the user know what they're on. Right now we have to select just the arrow, but we can later make that more aggressive when we search. The next thing I want to do is change the color of that to look like more of a segmented area. So I'll go like a deep blue on the left, and I'll do white text. Now notice right now though I can't select anywhere. It's a little tough to get inside there. Eventually you'll get in there. But what you can do is you can expand the gallery and actually select the arrow right here on the left, and it gets the same thing. It's kind of helps focus what you're looking at. Let's make that a white icon and then white text. On that blue, it should make a nice pretty application, and we can of course make that a little bolder also if you like to make it a little stand out. Now on top of that, you'll notice that we can kind of select this and do our next piece, but we're going to want to name this appropriate names here. I'll call this Gallery Browse Projects in order to make sure that I'm only seeing a list of projects. I have an appropriate name on this so I can find that later. Now that I've done that, we have two more, a gallery and a form to create to kind of finish off our application. So let's create one more gallery. When I select this item, Hindi translation, I want to see a list of Hindi translation items. So work items. So on the left here, let's go right here. Let's go to time card, and then let's go to a one without text here. So in my case, I want the title of that card to show the date of the time card. The subtitle will show the number of hours billed, and the user will be underneath that. So it looks like we're seeing a list of all those. And let me kind of make this a little bit bigger here and a little bit less tall so I have enough room up top to put some more stuff. Now, the nice thing about these repeaters, though, is as I kind of skinny these down a little bit and kind of wire these a little bit differently, we'll be able to, you'll see it repeat and creates more room for all of them. The first thing I notice is, first of all, the 2 here. My users are not going to know what that 2 means. So we need to make this a little bit cleaner for my users to tell what that means. So I'll go ahead and type in, let's see here, hours, and put an ampersand there. Now this item property means show me whatever item I have in my repeater. So I'll go ahead and do an ampersand again, and then do a pipe of some sort. Do an ampersand again, and then I'll do, oops, let me just call this work items, and then do an ampersand, and then let's call this item dot, and I want to get the work items created. This type of W, it should jump down there. All right, so now we can easily see what's being done. Now the challenge is we have like Devin Knight in here, we have Ken Wood. As we scroll down in here, hold the Alt key, we can see we have a lot of these people here that I should not be able to see, but also I'm seeing all the projects, not just the project I selected. So let's start by fixing that first. So let's go ahead and select this gallery. I have my items selected right here on the left. I'm going to change this instead from items. I'm going to go ahead and filter this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put the filter command to specify almost like a where clause in SQL Server. So I want to filter only the project ID. So I type in project ID. You'll notice, and I put equal sign, it will actually recognize, there we go, gallery projects dot selected dot project ID. That's essentially saying, put a where clause on the list of time cards you're showing to only show me the selected projects. So now I'm only seeing the projects for the whatever translation here, Hindi translation. If I go over, that's Hindi translation, and this is Spanish translation. So we can kind of see each of those items very, very easily. Now I want to be able to actually put some time on that project. So to do that, I'm going to use a form. Let's go ahead and create a new edit form, and let's wire this up to the time card. Okay, now in this case what we're going to do is we're going to create a whole bunch of new columns, and we're only going to use a few of those though. So we're going to check the columns that we're not going to show our customers, but there'll be columns like things like the project ID. But we already know what the project ID is because the customer selected it in this case. So we're not actually going to show the customer that, and as well as their email address as well. So we're going to use their email address but hide that field. Okay, so you'll see me check a whole bunch more, but only use a few of those. So let's go back here again. Okay, so when I select my time card, I'm going to check things like the hours they billed, the project they billed it on, the report date, the time card user, and the work items they did. Okay, you'll notice I have a 3-column grid right now, so we should see hopefully 3 columns as I kind of move this around here. Let me kind of wire this up so we can kind of see it a little better. I'm going to create a little bit of room up top here for one more thing later. Okay, now our first step we want to do, I'm going to get rid of this, and I want to go ahead and make the report date equal to today's date, right? So let's go ahead, and you'll notice when I select it, this has a little lock up top. Now that lock means it's a locked property. I cannot change it unless I go under Advanced and unlock that property. Now I can actually change the default date to now. There we go. So that sets it to today's date. Now the project ID, again, I'll do the same thing. I'll unlock the property again. The project ID, I'm going to change the default from parent.default to it'll be gallery browse, I believe, projects.selected.project ID. Okay. Perfect. Now we're seeing the value of 1 in there when I select that value. Now after I've done that, let's do one more. It has to be the time card user. Again, I'm going to unlock that property, select my text box, and change this. Now one of the functions we're going to use now is the user function to get things like the email address, the full name, and the image. And we'll talk about some pros and cons of using that in a moment. So just bear with me if you've already had some pains using it. It is pretty good at finding the email address, not very good at finding things like the photo. So with those 2 pieces here, the project ID and the time card user, I'm going to select that entire card, and I want to hide it now because we don't want users to be able to change that inner time for somebody else. So I'm going to change the visibility flag to on, or off, excuse me, and the same thing for project ID. Change this visibility flag to that as well. I'm going to make it a little bit wider, all the way to the edge, so it kind of bleeds on both sides. And we can also make it where it's only using 2 columns versus 3 if you want to kind of skinny that down. But I think it's actually not too bad with the 3 because I want to kind of use something else a little bit later here as well. The last thing I want to do is I want to make it look a little cleaner by changing the color more to like a gray background or something like that. I think that looks pretty nice. And I need to kind of skinny this guy down a little bit also, don't I? There we go. All right, cool. So now we should be able to add new items with the exception of one piece that we're forgetting about, and that's a submit button. So to do that submit button, we're going to insert a new button. Okay. And there we go. Let's go ahead and put that button inside of our form area, maybe like right here. We'll call it, when you select it, we want to go ahead and change its name to, how about submit time? There we go. And on select, when somebody selects that, we want to go through and actually submit the form. So I'll change this to submit form, open parenthesis, and you noticed from last time, this is actually going to run the update or run the insert. I specify the form name. I should, of course, given us a better name, but we'll go with it for now. And there's going to be something else I need to do later, but we'll come back to that. So when I hit the play button, look what happens. It's not quite working yet, is it? So that is because the default mode. So when I select submit time, I want to change it. I want to have this default mode not be edit, but instead be new. Now after I do that and hit the play button, now it's starting to work. So let's do 5 hours and 5 items collected on this 9/5 date. Hit submit, and look what happens next. It's going to submit the time, but then we got a gotcha here. Oh, so it's going back to that other mode again after it submits the time. So I need to specify that after you do that, I need you to reset the form again, ready for the next time to be entered. So I might come here once a week and submit my time for the entire week. So remember before we showed the semicolon will do 2 batches or 3 batches or so many batches. So after I submit the form, I want to reset the form next. So you'll see a function here called reset form. Then you specify the form you want to do, and then you're done. So now, when I go back there again, all right, I'll enter my time, 5 and 5, hit submit, and then it's going to reset that, get it ready to go. So it looks looking pretty good. The next piece I want to do is I need two things. I need to go ahead and change this arrow right here to where it will actually edit the form on top. So to do that, very, very simple. I need to change the mode of that form away from new mode and into edit mode. So let me go ahead and select the parent. Then I'm going to say edit, there it is, edit form, pass in my form name, form 1, close parenthesis, and then up top now that I've specified the form mode to be edit now, I need to change the item or the data source now to be the item property to actually be the item I care about. So the item I care about in my case is going to be, I think it was a gallery called. It's called gallery, a bad name here, gallery2.selected. So by doing this now, as I select this guy right here, it puts the value of 5 and 5 in. I can then change its value from 5 to 50. Again, sorry about that. All right, there we go. As I do this, if I were to put the value back to run this and put 50 in, watch what happens when I submit. Now, it might take it a good 8 or 9, maybe even 30 seconds here, but in a moment we'll see this 5 turn to 50. It does take some time oftentimes to actually make that change, just a gotcha there. So when I close it, there we go. It finally did update it. I've seen it take as much as 30 seconds sometimes to do that. It all depends on the woes and whims of the cloud. So with that now done, we are ready to do a few more things. First of all, I need to have the delete icon in here. So let's go ahead and change this. Now, before I do that, I need to make sure I'm actually in the right card. I'm in that area that I want to do. And the reason why is if I were to go insert an icon right now, a delete icon, look what happens. It's going to pop it up in the top left here, and it's not going to be in the right context. So as I kind of move this around, you can't quite see it, but it's back there somewhere. So the icon is not in the right context right now. So instead of doing that, I'm going to select an item inside of here, like this little arrow, to make sure it actually inserts in the right context. So if I go insert, trash can again, now we'll see 4 of them inserted because I have 1 per gallery item. Now this function to actually remove the item is actually pretty easy. So we're going to go remove. What data set do we want to base it on? It's my time card data set. And I'll do comma, this item. Close parenthesis, and there we go. So now I'm going to hold down the Alt key to just kind of run this manually here. I'm going to hit this this guy here, B Knight here. In a moment, we'll see that 3 and 3 go away, and it'll turn from 3 to 5 now. So there we go. So it's kind of hopping through these. We'll see and actually remove all the items I don't care about, and then I'll have one that I do care about. There's this one B Knight left. All right, so cool. So we're made some progress now. We now have it where it's deleting, editing, and inserting. But there's a few more things we need to do. Of course, one more touch we can do up top here. Let's put some text items in here. We put a label or two in place. So this label is going to tell us what we're actually editing right now. So I'll say time card, and then we'll have the gallery name we chose. So that'll be gallery browse dot selected dot project name. Now, of course, we can make that bigger, make it bolder, and kind of tinker with it and make it a much prettier application. We'll go with that same color blue on the left there, and I of course need to make a space there, but you get the idea. So I won't spend too much time addressing that, but you get the idea. It needs to be prettier, of course. I would never send this to a client or any of that. All right, so with that now done, we also want to put some debug code down below. And the reason why we're going to show this debug code is I want you to be able to understand and truly kind of understand what's going on inside this. I'm going to put 2 text boxes in here. And this is how you typically will go through and figure out, why is my code not working the way I expect it to work? So down here, I'm going to put the logged in user. So if I were to go in and type in that same function we saw in before, logged in as %, and it was a user, open close parenthesis dot email. So, and then I'll also put an image on the left here. Let me kind of make that a little bigger so you guys can see. There we go, my email address in all of its glory. And let's also put an image, and we'll talk about the problems that we're going to have with this. So I'll put an image here. I'm going to put my picture down below. So the URL for this is going to be, again, user open close parenthesis dot image. Okay, with that now done, we're going to have some issues now. And the issue that we're going to have is, first of all, this image that I use with that function, user function, is going to work great in design mode. And it looks great in design mode. However, it looks really good right now. But the issue that we're going to have is when we go to actually deploy this to our customers, it becomes a little bit off in many cases. So we want to find a way to fix that property next, to make it where it will actually work consistently across the board. To do that, we'll use our Office functions instead. Office 365 functions. We know the customer has Office 365 because they're signed into PowerApps, and it's using the same directory structure as Office 365. So let's go ahead and look at that next. So to do that, we're going to go to our connections again, our data sources, and we'll create one more data source to Office 365. You'll see that the data source in my case is called Office 365 users. I've already signed in once. I'm going to keep that. Now, after we do this, it's going to prompt the user to allow them to see this information, their profile information, allow the application to see this. So when somebody tries to consume this application, it will prompt them saying, are you sure you want to give them this private information to you? So up to you on that. So when I select this, I want to change this image in a moment to be something else. And on this function right here, let's see what this actually gives us. So if I were to go Office 365 users, and you'll notice there's a whole bunch of really cool functions right now. Now the email address code we saw before is going to work out generally pretty well across the board. But I can look at other people's profiles, look at the managers to send out alerts to those managers whenever their employees do a time card. We'll do that on Friday. But in my case, I'm going to do my profile. I'm going to close the parentheses because it's my profile, not your profile. And knows my information already. And I'll say, how about mail this time? That's the one. But look at all the cool stuff we have access to. Their nickname, their company name, their country, their address, all sorts of their phone numbers, all sorts of cool stuff we can get from this directory. So in a few seconds, we'll get that. Now let's take that same code that we just saw, And let me put a space there. And let's put that in our filter up top to where I only see my own time cards. I should not see Devin's time cards and Ken's time cards. So to do a multiple filters, we can do an ampersand now, double ampersand, and I can say, all right, time card user, there it is going to be equal to that code we just created. Now look at what happens as soon as we do that. We're getting this thing called a delegation warning. Now, a delegation warning is a very critical thing. And if you look at down below in the comments section, there's a list of things that are delegated and not delegated. This is not in the documentation, unfortunately. But when you have functions that are running a row by row, or in our case a repeater here, it is not going to be delegated properly. What delegation means is when I do a filter, it's going to convert that into a native filter at that data source. So in our case, SQL Server will have a where clause. So it's going to pass that filter into a where clause and only give me back the data set I care about. With that delegation warning you just saw, it's going to pull the entire data set back to PowerApps and then filter on the client side. Now doing that limits you to, by default, 500 rows. Now you can expand that, but keep in mind, now you're doing a filter across thousands of rows or 500 rows. So we want to make sure as much as possible can be delegated to the data source. So in this case, the reason why we're getting delegation warnings, this is all allowed. We can have ampersands, we can do all that. But because we're using this function that we're using, the Office 365 function, it is going to give us some grief there. So the reason why is it's run on a row by row basis. So let's fix that. The way we can fix that is we'll use a variable to store it one time and then pass it one time into our filter. So to do a variable, I'm going to go up, select the whole screen right now. I'm then going to go to under actions. I want to set this on start. So on start of the application, I want to set the variable. I'm going to go ahead and call it, use the set command. I will go ahead and create a new global variable. I'm going to call it var current user, comma, and I'm going to paste in that same code we saw before. All right, now that we've done that, I'm going to copy that username out. Now keep in mind, this is an on start event. It's only going to be run when the application is starting. So we're not going to see now when I change this to be that, it's going to go blank because the application hasn't started yet. Also, I'm going to change this right here to be my variable name. Now my delegation warning is going to go away, but also all my records are going to go away now also because it can't see the records. We of course can put some debug information here to stop us from looking at this like here. So my next step is to go ahead and save this. So go ahead and save the application. I'll give it a nice name like time card 2. I can change the icon, do all those kind of things. I'll put a little checklist there or something like that and change its icon to that nice dark blue. And let me go ahead and save that. I'm calling it time card 2 because I already have a few time cards out there, as you can see. Let me save that now. And with that now saved, I should be able to close the application, open it up again, and we'll see the connection now with the proper email address. It takes a few seconds now. The PowerApps environment's a little sluggish today, but we'll be able to fix that in a moment. So with that now done, let me go ahead and close this. We'll cover more about deployment of these applications tomorrow. But now I should be able to go to open. We should see hopefully time card 2. Up, and it's actually opening up in the wrong environment right now. I saved it to the wrong environment, unfortunately. So I'm just going to open up this time card app right here. There we go. Oh. And we should hopefully now see most of our stuff now in place. So we now have our variable now of our customers actually being populated properly. We're only seeing B9 at Pragmatic Works. I can now select this guy right here and make our last change. So to show you the issue, the challenge we have with this picture right here is if I deploy this out to my customers, they might see a silhouette instead of their actual picture. So I'm going to use the Office 365 to actually make that work. The challenge I have though is Office 365, that connector has a few issues right now. One of the issues is showing pictures when I pass an email address in. So I need to get the user's ID instead, which is that long GUID that Office 365 uses. Let me insert a label and show what that GUID looks like. To get that, it's in the profile properties. Office 365, my profile dot, close that, dot ID. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to copy that code out. There we go. We'll see the ID kind of starting to form right here. Now, if I go back over here again and change this to Office 365 users, user photo, there we go, pass in the ID, and close parenthesis. You'll notice the picture is going to change now because it's actually reading from a different gallery now. It's reading from a different, my proper Office picture versus the old one. So now the customer can see that, oh, I'm actually recognizes I'm logged in properly, and I'm ready to go. So with that now done, we can delete our debug code. There's one last thing we want to do, and that's just to say, hey, what we're actually inserting right now. So let's go ahead and put another label up top. All right, let me kind of get that label, pop it in over here, and we'll just say, all right, editing our time card for, I think I may have already done this. And then in percent, we'll do gallery projects.selected.project name. There we go. And of course, we need to increase the size of that and make it a little more usable, but you get the idea on that. So I won't go too much in that. So now, if I hit the play button now, we should see as I go into Hindi translation, we're seeing what we're editing. I'm adding hours to it and submit time, and we built a pretty nice application. So it's easily to manage. It looks like a pretty application now. We of course need to change the view of this a little bit, make it a little fancier up top here, take our debug code out of the bottom, and we'll be ready to rock. So pretty nice. In our next video we're going to do, now that you've learned how to integrate with Office 365 and some of the functions around that, you may have noticed there was a manager function. So we're going to send the time card in our next video tomorrow to the manager of that employee. We're also going to use, we'll deploy the application and secure it on Thursday. So our tomorrow's video, we're going to secure it, deploy it, and on Friday we'll do notifications and emails. Thank you so much for viewing this live stream, and thank you for our patience on our technical difficulties today. Have a great day, and don't forget to go to our class information in our comments section for our on-demand class all around Power Apps also. Have a great day.